Hello, and welcome to the AVForums Movie Podcast, streaming live on May the 4th, 2021. It is Star Wars Day. Happy Star Wars Day, everyone. This is the place where we attempt to discuss the biggest and best releases from an AV perspective. I say we attempt it. We made a pretty good show of it last week, but we're going to do even better. I'm Tom Davies, and joining me today from Murmansk in Soviet Russia is Simon Crust.
Hello, everybody.
And live from CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, it's Kaz Harlow.
Yep, I'm here.
Over the course of the next hour or so, these two will engage in a cat and mouse game of political intrigue. And by the end, if all goes as planned, they will come away with a grudging respect for one another. So
I don't play tennis.
One ping only. Now, today, we are going to be talking about a film with little to no connection to its source material, to the book it's based on. But before we get into that, Simon, you watched a book-based thing, didn't you? You watched The Ten Commandments on 4K recently. That's based on a book, a pretty good book, from what I hear.
It's based on quite a the world's best-selling book, in fact. And it's a very small part in the beginning, and the actual part isn't in the book, in fact, because it's based on the early life of Moses, which actually isn't in the book. So in that regard, this is a fiction.
Ooh.
Some might say that the book itself is, but we won't go into that because that's not where we're about, are we? Yes, epic is epic. You know, it's as epic as can be, and I've got to say, it looks amazing. Vista Vision, beautiful. Got to be up there with the top 5 of all 4K releases, along with Lawrence of Arabia and 2001. You know, those are the absolute pinnacle of the format, and I've got to say, this one is as well.
Yeah, it looks amazing. Were you turned on by the badger hanging off Charlton Heston's face, or is that a problem unique to me?
Oh, absolutely.
He was a handsome man in his day. Even as an old man, he was a handsome man.
In his day, yeah.
Ben-Hur next, isn't it?
Yeah.
Ben-Hur's around the corner.
Ben-Hur's coming out, yeah, it's very soon. Yeah.
Just been
That
announced.
could be quite something.
Check out the watch.
Especially for those of you with projectors and what have you. It is just worth a little bit of a mention that we may have some trouble with audio quality. So please bear with us through our technical difficulties. We will endeavor to make it as listenable and watchable as possible to those of you tuning in live. Kaz, you have been keeping up your usual pace of watching everything under the sun. Any of your recent watches spawned from the published word?
Anything I've watched recently have come from the published word. No, I mean, I think I served my duty by watching Without Remorse, but I don't think it's really counts as coming from the published word. So, but no,
Yeah.
I don't think a great deal that I've seen recently has been book based.
It's a golden era for new ideas.
No, it isn't.
Sequels.
Recycling old ideas and then throwing the name of a random book on them.
Perfect. Absolutely. I think me neither. Not explicitly. Oh no, I watched Nomadland, but the patrons have spoken. We are not allowed to speak about Nomadland. The patrons were given an opportunity to decide what it was we were talking about this week, and on that list was Nomadland and Oscar winners, and they did not want to hear about it. So
5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm saying nothing about Nomadland, except it was 10 out of 10, and it was a masterpiece.
Sounds like a 7.
So I did also watch this new Netflix SF movie Stowaway, which somebody rightfully pointed out, is vaguely based on the Tom Godwin short story, The Cold Equations. In fact, it is more based on that than it gives it credit for, because it's a movie about a return trip to Mars, kitted out for 3 people, but having to support 4, and the ethical dilemmas that go along with that. I really liked it. I thought it was a neat little movie. It's it wasn't exciting per se. It was like an extended ethical dilemma, so it was about as slow as you would expect that to be. But I thought the performances were good. I liked the way it was handled. Yeah, it was a neat movie.
I've not got around to it yet, but I am looking forward to it because I do think Netflix do okay in the sci-fi genre.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm looking forward to the Oxygen that's coming out shortly.
Oh, save it for the relevant section of the podcast.
Can't hold it. I was trying to hold it in, but I need Oxygen.
I agree. It looks interesting, doesn't it? It looks like no, this is the wrong part of the. Don't try and drag me into your.
It's back. Yeah, I did it.
We've got structure that we need to adhere to here. All right.
Yeah.
So where were we? Ethical dilemmas. Yeah. Speaking of ethical dilemmas, in space, today's movie has nothing to do with that. Segue. So I guess before we move on to talking about today's movie, we should maybe tell people what they can win if they go to avforums.com/competitions. Kaz?
Yes. Okay, you can win an SVS SB1000 Pro from the American Audio Company. They're also giving away 10 runner-up prizes, including isolation feet, sub-leads, and T-shirts. You can win a Live Audio Pro Series all-in-one ceiling speaker kit worth £599.99. And we also got a bunch of new 4K Blu-ray competitions, Patreon exclusives like Fanny Live 4K, Arrows, Battle Royale, Blu-ray, box set, 5 discs, everything thrown in, and the kitchen sink, as well as regular competitions. Justice League, I make that mistake every single time. Justice Society is the Justice League, but we're just going to call it the Justice Society. World War II on Blu-ray, collector's edition Blu-ray of Austin Powers, limited edition release of the 800 on Blu-ray, and Criterion's May titles and Criterion's April titles is also still open. So head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK, and stay tuned as well for a podcast exclusive competition to win a copy of Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit on Blu-ray.
Sweet. Thank you very much for that. We, since our last broadcast, have also had a couple of new donors. So I want to say thank you very much to our new patrons. They are Martin Gear and Benny Duke. Thanks for supporting everything we do. We super appreciate it. And we promise at some point we will deliver to you a podcast that is more professional than this.
Good luck with that.
Give us about 10 years.
That was a big promise, wasn't it? Oh my goodness. For the reason we are really all here, we asked the AVF patrons to choose from a list of possible topics for us to discuss this time around. They rejected Star Wars, rejected Nomadland, rejected Mortal Kombat, which is lucky because it's only just come out. Instead, they have consigned us to watching and discussing Tom Clancy's Without Remorse. That's right. It is time for our feature presentation. Run the ident.
If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, then please leave us a rating on your podcast app. We invite you to email questions and feedback to podcast@avforums.com. and join in with this episode's discussion thread in the podcasts forum at AVForums.
So we're talking about Without Remorse. Kaz, do you want to tell us?
Do we talk about it without remorse?
We will be talking about it with great remorse, Simon.
Great remorse.
I've got no remorse about what I'm going to say. Zero remorse about what I'm going to say about this film. Sure, talk about it. We can talk about the story, although if you've seen Hard to Kill or Born Supremacy. You know it.
Mhm.
It was done better. Yes, even in the Seagal film. It's got no relation to the book which it's from, other than the fact that it's about a guy called John Clark. It's not even John Clark for most of the movie. He's Black Ops, Navy SEAL, and he gets into a modicum of trouble. He basically gets into some kind of conspiracy, which leads to him going on a vendetta, but not really, and trying to uncover the conspiracy at the same time as getting his vengeance in or something. I mean, it's messy. It's what it is a very serviceable generic action movie from Hollywood and Amazon. A very by the numbers, you can tell who the bad guy is, go from A to B, shoot some people, crash a plane, action movie with lots.
That's your tagline right there. Very generic action movie.
Yeah, it is. That's it. It's very generic action movie. It's they've just happened to have taken this very generic action movie and stuck Tom Clancy. So they didn't even just call it Without Remorse, because somehow I feel like if they'd called it Without Remorse, you could have just pretended they'd used a generic title. Because let's face it, it's a pretty generic Seagal-ish title. So they could have just called it Without Remorse, but they had to stick Tom Clancy's at the start, which really does make you, or at least me, because I'm quite a Tom Clancy fan, and I have come to realize that when I say I'm a Tom Clancy fan, I'm mostly a fan of the adaptations, because his books, whilst they are good, they've been adapted sometimes better, and he does get really stuck into describing how a nuclear bomb works, or how a Black Hawk is constructed, and he does really get into the detail, and it's I like his style, but they're heavy slogs, his books. This happens to be a great book, and I've no idea why they stuck Tom Clancy's Without Remorse at the start of the title, gave it to this, because it's not. Tom Clancy's Without Remorse, for people who don't know, basically was written part set in Vietnam and part set in the modern day, about a disillusioned former Navy SEAL who had lost his wife in a tragic accident and who had rediscovered a connection with someone who had their own shady past with some kind of drug cartel. And when they are wiped off the page, he decides to go on a vengeful killing spree. It's basically a cross between First Blood, which it was actually inspired by, and Last Blood, ironically, the Rambo movies. And there's none of that here. This is generic action movie telly, and I really expected more from Michael Jordan, who doesn't appear to have really been given a script or any kind of idea as to how to play the character, so has just relied on everything he's ever known before to kind of be, the person you'd expect from Creed, except with a gun. And I think it's disappointing. This guy's supposed to be quite a scary, very experienced, and maybe slightly older Black Ops guy, who you would not like to turn up. He will turn up to clean up the mess that people have got into. And I don't really know what they did with him.
Sure.
I mean, that's my take on it. For me, I've always pictured this guy a little bit like Jean Reno's. Jean Reno's character from Leon.
Yeah, of course.
He played a similar sort of character in Nikita. His character is called Victor. It's what they based Leon on. But in Nikita, when his character arrived, he was the cleaner, and he was very unpredictable. He was there to basically kill everybody and clean up the mess and just walk away. He didn't have any compunction about it. That if they called him, things had already gone way off the rails, and he had no problems pulling the trigger. And there's an element of darkness to that I think they could have explored quite well. The guy we see in this, he could be Jack Bauer, or Bourne, or anyone else, generic action hero TM. He's just another walking cliche.
Yeah, and I think I was sort of surprised. You've mentioned that it's very, very generic, and it is so generic. I was really surprised by the direction, or I guess lack of direction, that was given to Michael B. Jordan. Director for this one was Stefano Sollima, who recently helmed the TV show 000, which easily one of the best TV shows of last year. And prior to that, Gomorrah, and
that's a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sicario 2, which okay, not amazing, but not terrible, but definitely more competent than sort of we saw here. We didn't really get any, or I didn't really get any character from the direction of this. What about you, Si? What did you take away from it?
It was borderline boring, actually. It smacked of straight to DVD, Netflix, cheap and nasty. Let's bash one out, and that's really what. And if you go into it with that mindset, great. As Kaz said, if you take the Tom Clancy name of it, you can live with that. You can, because it's if it's a switch your brain off, guzzle a couple of beers and have a laugh at it, because you can only laugh at it because there's no real threat or danger to anyone, even though the guy gets shot more times than the Terminator and still keeps going. There's no threat to it at all, to anyone. I don't know. It was meh.
You're right. You put it succinctly. It really.
Meh. Is just it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's just meh.
Which is a shame, because it had potential, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. From that book, they could have done something interesting and dark,
and not just from the book.
It was, but it was stuck for years and years and years in production hell, wasn't it? For what, 20 years, 30 years? I don't know how long exactly, but years and years and years. So it's gone through God knows how many writers, directors, screenplayists, actors, having their name taken off of it. And at the end of it, you're left with films that have a long production history generally don't turn out great anyway, because there's obviously something inherently wrong with it at the very beginning. Otherwise, it would have been made. But I don't know. Even if you the simplest thing, just take the name off it. Take Tom Clancy's name off it, and you've got something that is, passable.
I am speaking of development hell. I have a list here of everybody who's had a name attached to it in the past. Would you like to hear it? So, in its original incarnation,
I'll give you a minute on that.
In its original incarnation, John Clark, Keanu Reeves was signed up to play John Clark
in his heyday.
Yeah. This was back in this was around Speed time, I think.
Speed, yeah, and Chain Reaction time.
Exactly. So, starring opposite him as Greer would have been Larry Fishburne. How great would have that been?
Yeah.
So we didn't get that. Oh, and I'm guessing the Guy Pearce type was originally flagged to be Gary Sinise. So, we lost a movie there. Then that moved on. That was dropped. A few years later, it was picked up by Chris McQuarrie. Who wants to see this movie now? Chris McQuarrie, and it was going to star Tom Hardy. This is starting to sound like a film I want to see now. Like I'm starting to feel a bit sad that we were robbed of a Chris McQuarrie movie.
Yes.
And instead, it got shopped around again. Akiva Goldsman eventually attached to produce. Akiva Goldsman will be a name that is known to people who are fans. I'm doing air quotes for people who aren't watching. Fans of New Trek, of Star Trek Discovery. But Akiva Goldsman's got a very storied career, having won an Oscar for A Beautiful Mind and then gone on to produce Star Trek Disco and what have you. So it's just a really, really weird mix of people. The person who ended up writing it, Taylor Sheridan, who wrote Hell and High Water and Wind River.
Yep. And did Yellowstone.
And Yellowstone. That is the person.
He is, yeah.
Taylor Sheridan and Stefano Sollima, these are the people who are responsible for the thing that we watched.
Are they, though? I'm going to play devil's
possible?
advocate. I'm going to play devil's advocate here because I fancy playing devil's advocate in this one. I wonder whether this is...
Hang on. Stop. If you're going to play it as devil's advocate, you need to do your best Al Pacino impression.
I can't. I'll end up shouting at the screen for no reason. Yeah. Yeah. You got a great ass! So, I mean, the reality is that this feels like a wrote and directed for hire kind of affair. So Taylor Sheridan, we know you write good stuff in this broad genre. Come in and just change that line, and we'll stick your name on the credits, and then people will think it's good. Stefano Sollima, you've done a good TV show and or two, but you're a bit hit and miss at movies. Take on this director for hire thing. You need to produce generic action movie TM. We don't really want you coloring outside the lines on this one, so just go with it. Just make some bang bang. And I wonder whether that was the request here, because I mean, all of these guys had their hands tied. I'm almost certain that the source Tom Clancy novels are in litigation hell, because not Jack Ryan, the TV series, and not Shadow Recruit, and not this. I mean, they call themselves Tom Clancy, but they haven't actually been able to use anything other than the characters. So I think that they're trapped in litigation hell. It's either that or, and I'm really stretching here, no one can be bothered to try and adapt them. And I sympathize. I read Clear and Present Danger and I nearly died. Okay, it's so dense. It's like 500,000 pages long, with entire chapters where nothing happens, but he describes it. It's so dense that if you don't really force yourself through it, you can't. I mean, I loved it, but if you were trying to make that into a film, you would look at it and you see the picture of a jungle and an explosion and a helicopter on the front page under the big bold letters saying Clear and Present Danger, and you'd go, I'm making that film, I'm not reading these pages. Or you might read the back of the cover, Jack Ryan goes and takes on the drug cartel. Right, I'm making that movie. I feel sorry because screenwriters just don't have the time to take apart a person's book. But it is a shame, as we'll get to later
in 30 years. They must have had time in 30 years, surely.
Yeah, but you know what happens? Someone writes a pass, and then someone else goes, let's pass it to this guy, let's pass it to that guy, and by the time it ends up...
Oh, so it's Chinese Whispers then, is that what happened? It started off as a good adaptation, and 30 years later you end up with generic action movie.
Yeah, a little bit, maybe, because I think back in the day they could do good adaptations. They did it for Clear and Present Danger, but maybe these days no one wants to take the time to do a good adaptation. Or maybe the guy who did a good adaptation, they looked at it and they went, hang on, you've made a film that's a cross between First Blood and Last Blood. We can't film this because people will go, you've made a film that's a cross between these two things. So instead, make a film that's a cross between Hard to Kill and Born Supremacy. People will be so confused that they'll just file it under generic action film and like it. So, I mean, I don't really know what the logic is behind it, but I feel like maybe the guys actually who did it, the director and the writer, didn't have much of a choice. I mean, if you look at Shadow Recruit, that was the last Jack Ryan film outing. It's directed by he's going to win everything for Shakespeare. Branagh. It was directed by Kenneth Branagh.
Gosh.
And it was and of course he was the villain in it. And it had him, it had Keira Knightley, and it had Chris Pine, had Kevin Costner, had everything. You'd have ticked all these same boxes with that, maybe even more boxes. And it was still generic film adaptation. It had Jack Ryan, analyst, outrunning a motorcycle on foot and beating up people and taking down a helicopter with a bomb in it. That just wasn't his style. And it feels like no one wants to do his style. I mean, we live in the age of modern Bond and modern Bourne. Why would we want to see a CIA analyst, trying to figure stuff out with his brain? That's not interesting. Hit someone already. So
I don't know. The Hunt for Red October and it was pretty good, wasn't it?
no, I'm
Used
saying
his
they're
brain in
excellent.
that.
I'm saying they're really excellent. But these days, no, they think that no one wants to see that anymore. I want to see it.
Yeah.
I want to see the guy in Clear and Present Danger who never picked up a gun but took on the cartel in South America, took on the president. And he never picked up a gun in the whole damn thing. I mean, he's got some fantastic lines, and there are some fantastic action scenes in it, but he wasn't an action hero. These days, I think it's like some kind of a sign of, I don't know, impotence for them to portray a main lead character as not being able to really go toe to toe in a fight. If he can't do that, then we're not really going to stick his name on the cover of this movie. And I think that's a bit of a shame, really. Because the whole point of this guy was he was a CIA analyst who used to get into a whole world of pain, normally because he saw things that other people didn't see, and had to persuade a whole bunch of very angry politicians to avoid World War III. I mean, that was basically what he did in about 4 or 5 of his 20 book run. I mean, they haven't been able to translate that to the screen without, like, in the modern age, not in the old days of Ford, but in the modern age, without resorting to pick up a gun, shoot some people, kick some people, do it.
We're
drifting.
We're being Debbie Downers on this movie, and we're not without reason. It's
without remorse.
Without remorse. Exactly. We think, but that it wasn't irredeemable. It wasn't irredeemable. Like it showed promise in the opening few minutes.
Yes,
it showed promise as being, like you say, a Bourne type actioner, and there was even some little bits of inventiveness. There is I don't want to get too spoilery, but there is an action sequence in which a craft they are in capsizes in the water, and the way that is filmed, I thought, was really excellent. It led to a bit of pointless nonsense, but that moment, as it was, that's quite good.
That was a clever bit of filming. It was the gimbal under the water. That was filming. And for real, which you said that was good, and he sounded pretty good as well. There was a good surround motive on that, so that worked.
I think. I mean, it had a score by. I'm never going to come up with his name, but I was surprised when I heard that it was them, and then I also at the same time realized that the score was actually unusually good considering what I felt about the movie. But yeah, it sounded really good, and some of the action was very good. I thought Jordan as a fighter, I mean, he had his combat both with a gun and without a gun really down pat. It's very John Wickian, but I always give credit to any actor who you don't know for that to suddenly take it on. So very early on in the movie, he's got his assault rifle and he's shooting people, and then someone grabs him and he has to tackle 2 people hand to hand, then with a knife, then stop them with the knife, draw his pistol, finish them off, and then switch back to his assault rifle. And he does it all in 14 seconds, very, very smoothly. It's it's got some impressive action to it.
Yeah, Jordan is a consummate pro. No one's going to question that, I don't think. But the sound sounds good. Sounds nice.
What did we think about the picture?
Yeah, what did we think about the
What did we think about the? I mean, it's 4K. It's Amazon, so they just don't believe in Dolby Vision.
No,
but 4K HDR on Amazon. What did we think? I want to hear everybody else's first.
I want to hear what Simon thinks. I defer to Simon in all things technical.
It was okay, but it wasn't particularly bright. It wasn't particularly pop 3D. The highlights were okay. The dark was a bit too dark.
Yeah.
But you know, if you didn't, okay, put it this way: if you didn't know it was HDR, you could probably get away with saying it really wasn't. You know, yeah.
I mean, I found that it was so dark at times that I thought it had one of those Netflix Dolby Vision passes. I know it was Amazon and 4K HDR, but Netflix are renowned for doing Dolby Vision passes, which make the image look really impenetrably dark. I mean, it's not crushed out at all, but it's just damn
Just
dark.
black. Yeah,
And
pitch black.
there were a couple of scenes in this where I couldn't really. I kind of got what was going on, but I was surprised, considering the early sequences in the film were actually very well lit for being at night. There were later scenes. There's a sniper sequence which was pretty dark.
Oh boy, I have opinions on that sniper sequence. Man, oh man.
Yeah,
I don't know that we often like pull up editing specifically when we're talking about movies, but I was shocked at how badly some of these sequences to put together. Just really basic stuff that they were getting wrong in this sniper sequence. Not creating a sense of place, not like making it clear where people were in relation to other people, just like a real patchwork of shots that became distractingly disconnected in that. You know, they just in trying to create a sense of chaos, I guess they just completely bungled the edit, so that instead of being tense about whether people are going to get shot, you're trying to just work out where people are and what they're doing. Like there was no visual connection made to like what John Kelly was doing to what his support team were doing, or even if they were in the same room, or even if they were in the same building. I couldn't work out whether they were a defensive or offensive party. It just sucked the tension out of that scene for me, and not often am I baffled by an action sequence. Even a shaky cam I can get my way through, but this, I just found it distractingly clumsy.
I mean, I never thought I'd call back to someone like Luc Besson, but at the end of Leon, there's a sniper sequence towards the end, and it's filmed in daylight, and there's only two characters who are in any kind of peril, but they do it extremely well through using snipers with a laser scope, and you just see the beams of red light coming through, and like hitting a pot plant or hitting a crucifix on the wall, something. It's very well done and extremely tense with the music. They needed to go back and watch a few classics, because you kind of knew what was going on, but not really, and there was a feeling of having to run with it in a lot of this.
Let's round up. Let's turn over to our final thoughts on this, because I think we sort of hatched out what was wrong.
We need to move on to good stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's give some final thoughts on this. Simon, would you recommend this? What's your final verdict?
If you go into it with the right mindset, you can get something out of it. Okay, ignore the title. Have a couple of cans of lager. Sit down and throw popcorn at it, a bit like he does in to his mate there. It's. Is it watchable? You know what? I'm going to backtrack. No, don't. There's so much more that's better on screen at the moment. You don't have to worry about this one. Forget it. Forget it.
Good. Thanks. Unequivocal there. So, what about you, Kaz? Are you going to recommend?
If you can divorce it from Tom Clancy and the novel Without Remorse. It's a perfectly serviceable generic action movie. If you've got any connection to the book whatsoever, even vaguely, you're gonna have to accept a modicum of anger at what they've done. Okay, it's perfectly serviceable. Just should have called it something else. You know what? I'd watch, a bunch of films with Jordan, in his kind of Taken mold, where he's playing whatever character this is, and where he's doing his thing, running around special ops, taking on terrorists around the world. Just don't call it anything Tom Clancy. Don't call it Without Remorse. Don't call it Rainbow Six. Just have him do his thing, and it could be his Taken franchise. And it might never get much better than like a high 6, but I'd still watch it, and I'd still recommend it. It's the name that's an issue. So if you can get away from that, give it a shot, because it's a perfectly watchable, by the numbers action movie.
Sure. I'm not going to deviate too far from that. I think it was fine as a film. It was okay. I'm not going to recommend it to anyone. I'm not going to say go out of your way and watch this. But if you stick it on, you'll probably find something in there to enjoy. It's okay. It's an okay movie. How many times have I said okay now? I'm starting to feel awkward. We have spent way too long on Tom Clancy's #SorryNotSorry. So we need to sort of get a move on to talking about things that we actually like, things that are actually interesting. But before we do, we've got a few people actually on the live chat, which is awesome. Welcome to you people who are watching live. Here's a question for you. What is your favorite book to screen adaptation? Put it in the live chat, or if you're listening afterwards, put it in the podcast thread on the forum. What's your favorite? What's a good book to screen adaptation? What does it get right? Equally, what does it get wrong? That's what we want to know. We'll come back to some of your thoughts in the live chat a bit later on, because that's what we're going to be talking about pretty much. No. We wanted to look at, initially we were going to look at Tom Clancy in general, but really we're leading into a discussion about book adaptations and some of the best, some of the worst, and how they figure in the world of adaptation and going from their source material to what we see on the screen. So, Sai, have you got any favorites? A book that you love that became a movie that you love?
Ooh. A book that I love that became a movie I love. Okay. I'm gonna go with it leads into a fair discussion. So I love a lot of Stephen King, right? He was one of the first authors I really got into years and years ago. And I loved The Stand. Not Stand, The Shining. I love The Stand as well, but that's never been done well. The Shining was a fantastic book, showing the breakdown of the character. It was a really nice guy, and he was tempted, and he became evil. That's essentially in a nutshell. That is what The Shining is. And King's excellence at describing that devotion of the bloke into madness and what he did while he was there and surrounded in the isolation of the hotel was fantastic. Now, when it came to making that as a film, it's been made twice, but we're talking about the Kubrick film. He took the source novel and he cut it to the bone, literally cut it to the bone. And he made one of the best book adaptations, because he treated he took that little element of their bloke turning to madness, he took that one line and he made a fantastic film out of it, barely taking anything from the novel. Fantastic film. And that, I think, is the crux of what makes a good book to film adaptation. You don't script it word for word, because they're different media. Yeah, they can't go. You can't have one transcribed to the other. It doesn't work. You get it, the screen is littered with bad adaptations of that type. But a really, really good one is when they take the essence of the book and put it on the screen. Okay, so that's one. I've got another couple in here. Short story, Clive Barker, Candyman. Now, again, they took the essence of that book, the idea, and they expanded a bit, and they made a brilliant film. And that film, I think, is better than the short story. That doesn't normally go. Normally, the books are way, way, way better than the film because you've got your imagination, they've got the time and exploration. You can go so much deeper into thoughts and characters and la-di-da. We all know this. But to make a film that's better than a book by taking just the few strands, few elements and bringing out, and Candyman is one of the best examples that I can think of that's done that.
Candyman's a particularly great example as well because Clive Barker, who wrote the short story, actually went into screenwriting, and his efforts at screenwriting are, shall we say, cult niche at best. He is not. I might be creating enemies here, but I like a lot of his work as an author, but as a screenwriter, we end up with Nightbreed. Do you know what I mean? He is not suited to that medium. And I think, sorry, that's an example of what you were saying of people who think that they can take the way a novel works and transfer it directly to the screen. And you're right, you just can't. There's one exception to that, but I'll come back in a minute. What about you, Kaz? Something... I'll open the question a bit more. Like, are there any books that you love that turned into crappy adaptations, or vice versa? Books that you have no interest in that made a good film?
A bad book that made a good film. Oh,
I'm throwing them out there left and right.
It really is a tough ask, isn't it? I am a big fan of Chandler. But I would say that I don't find all of his original novels utterly compelling or without flaws. I think he drifted a lot of times and ended up in places that it didn't feel like where he was going to go to begin with. And I find the adaptation of The Long Goodbye with Elliot Gould by Robert Altman is just not what you'd expect from Chandler, and a lot better for it. I'm not saying I don't like the Humphrey Bogart versions of his Marlowe. I mean, Marlowe's a fantastic character. I like Humphrey Bogart's version. I like Robert Mitchum's version. I like the version they got Danny Glover to play Marlowe. They're all great, very tough, wise talking interpretations of Marlowe, but actually Elliot Gould, you wouldn't expect it of him. It's a very slightly neurotic, very cynical, and very funny Marlowe in the same world that all the others were in. And I think it really works. So I think that's probably an example, and maybe Apocalypse Now, because I did study Hearts of Darkness. I didn't really like it, and I'm not saying I didn't think it was I'm not saying I didn't think it was a good novel. It just wasn't really for me. I didn't come out of it going, that's changed my life right there. Apocalypse Now, it takes the bare bones of Hearts of Darkness and you know, whatever Conrad was trying to get across, and it turns it into this sweeping epic, all backdropped against Vietnam. I think it does a lot with a little for me. So maybe those examples, and maybe also Electric Sheep. Again, I'm finding myself in dangerous territory here. Yeah, Blade Runner is phenomenal, And
Yeah,
I'm
but the
I'm
book is not.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I was going to be a bit sensitive about it, but no.
No,
Come
it's
on.
not. It's all over the place.
Sadly
Yeah.
missing from Blade Runner is the obsession with, I want to say it's an artificial goat, or maybe it's an artificial sheep. I can't remember which it is now. But they go on about that animal like there is no tomorrow in Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep.
I don't know, because he's done better books. So it's interesting that that Blade Runner it didn't work. And the last one I'll mention is Drive. The author of Drive, I should have really researched the names before this. The guy who wrote Drive and went on to write the sequel, which is like The Driver or something like that. Anyway, he's a very monotone author, and not everything is described in a very clinical fashion. If you read his books, they are descriptive, but they're not very emotive. They're very cold. And to take that and turn it into Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive with that phenomenal soundtrack and style to it, it shows you that you could take even something cold and unreachable and turn it into a very moving and effective stylistic piece. With
Wow,
half.
I didn't even know that Drive was based on a book. That's how, that's how up on things I am. I didn't
very
even realize.
thin book. Very
Okay.
thin book.
Okay. I am now gonna search that out and read it, whether it's good or bad. I don't care. I'm gonna have a look at it because I quite like that film.
But on the plus side, it's short.
Okay, short is good. We like short. Yeah. Good. Thanks for that. That was interesting. I'm learning stuff today. That's awesome.
I mean, I would say there's an exception to Simon's rule. I agree with the rule in principle.
Go on.
The idea that you can't translate direct to screen. I mean, it's an almost universal rule. But the exception for me is in books which rely heavily on excellent, almost movie standard dialogue. Books where it's almost like the narrative takes a second place to the dialogue. And I'd say that this is, again, probably almost exclusively down to authors like Elmore Leonard. You take an Elmore Leonard book and you take his dialogue and you stick it in anyone's mouth directly in a movie, and it almost doesn't matter what's going on in the background. So I agree with Simon that you can't take your, your Hannibals and your Tom Clancy movies. You can't take the books and push them on screen because you'll end up in a world of pain. You just can't do it. But you could probably take an Elmore Leonard book, strip out everything but the dialogue and use that as your actual screenplay, and then have the bare bones narrative behind it. That can be whatever the story is. So that's where the exception for me is, where a writer of a novel has done dialogue that is ready for actors to say.
I was going to say I have one example of direct page to screen success, but I actually think I have two. I'm going to be a jerk and I'm going to say, have a guess. What do you think? What am I thinking of?
Direct page to screen success.
Yeah, come on. There's an easy one.
If you say without remorse, I'm gonna get upset. So I
wouldn't know, man. I have read a Tom Clancy book. I read a couple when I was a teenager, but Without Remorse was not one of them. So,
okay. Is it anything to do with a ring?
No, but thanks for talking about Lord of the Rings, because we've got an hour spare, haven't we? I could. No, it's not Lord of the Rings. Although those movies, 10 out of 10, all the way home. No, I'm thinking of initially a Robert Rodriguez movie.
Robert Rodriguez.
Dead Air. I love this. Dead Air makes for a great podcast. Sin City. Sin City.
We're gonna go there.
It was a graphic novel. I deliberately discounted anything novel-wise.
The word novel is in there. A dude wrote that.
I don't know, because you're bringing in Marvel stuff now and X-Men and all that. No. I'm gonna have to draw a line there. You can't.
You are.
You were talking about 300. Nah.
300 is the other one. Ding ding. So I get surprised. 300 is a really weird, like super macho. I'm not saying the movie isn't this. The movie is this and more, but it is. The graphic novel of 300 is a very, very typical Frank Miller. Men are men and women are generally just for sleeping with. It's not a particularly delightful book to read, but the movie takes it as a storyboard.
It takes the pictures as a storyboard, exactly,
and is beautiful and is nonsense.
It is
superb.
Yeah.
But yeah, Sin City does the same thing. Sin City is super faithful to three of the stories from that, again, Frank Miller collection.
They messed up the sequel a bit, though. I was a bit disappointed that they wasted, because I loved A Dame to Kill For.
Sure.
I was really looking forward to that. But I'll give you Sin City, and I will definitely give you Mickey Rourke as Marv, because when I read Sin City, I thought they're never going to get this right. And they got Mickey Rourke, gave him a bunch of plasters, and had him jumping out of windows.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You are bending the rules, though, Tom.
I'm not bending the rules. Graphic novel.
No. I'm going to have to draw a line.
It was on a page and it went onto the screen.
So I'm vetoing you talking about Lord of the Rings just because of that.
Yes. But yeah, Lord of the Rings, they're good adaptations.
Oh, don't you do it
again? A nice bit of filleting of the source novels, taking out lots of information, but still keeping the narrative going. Which is why the theatrical versions work better than the extended stuff.
Whoa! Whoa there!
Particularly the first one.
Regret, Simon.
Particularly the first one, which was a very conscious decision on Jackson's part to just have the literally formation of the ring. It's Frodo's story from getting the ring to when he breaks up the Fellowship. That was a very, very deliberate narrative, and when you put in all the other stuff, as great as it is, you lose that direct line.
I'm going to make this easier for you, Tom. Let's look at what they did with Lord of the Rings and compare it with what they did to The Hobbit as an example of the extremes of adapting.
That's interesting. Did they make a film of The Hobbit? That's good. It would fit really nicely into like 2.5 hours. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it would really good. Yeah.
Dear me. We are rapidly running out of time, but we really, really want to go to the chat and talk about some things that people have been talking about. Some of the things that we have. Stephen King has reared his head more than once in there. As Si mentioned, he is a very prolific author of books, and his films are just as prolific. The adaptations of his books are just as prolific. Any favorites except for The Shining? Good Stephen King movies?
Well, a lot of them aren't particularly good because, like I say, his novels are so dense. There's so much going on within the characters and the way that it develops. They start really slow and then they build up in pace, and it works fantastic in novel form. And therefore, therefore films don't tend to be able to do that. The remake of It, the first chapter, that was pretty good.
Second chapter, awesome.
3D. There we go. 3D Blu-ray bunker there was just giving me a lifeline. Shawshank and Stand By Me.
Oh yeah,
two fantastic adaptations there. So,
but then movies better than the book. Even Stephen King said the Shawshank Redemption was better than the book, didn't he? So
he did, and there was. We'll just scroll back a bit. Someone said
Duda Bites is mentioned in Commander, and I should have picked up on that. I tried to pick books that I've actually read. Master and Commander, I really, to this day, I am definitely one of those people, raise the flag for some sequels to that, because I thought it was phenomenal. And I'm really pleased to hear they took the dialogue directly from the books, and there's a whole saga. And they should have really done more. So
tell you what, I've got another one here another fantastic adaptation by taking the source novel or taking elements of the source novel and making a brilliant film out of it was Starship Troopers. Now, if you've read a novel of that, it's all written very similar totalitarian, but it's all told by one guy and how he goes through the ranks and his view of the thing. Again, Paul Verhoeven's film of that novel is, I think, superior.
I agree. The book is almost po-faced in its like jingoistic nonsense, and the send-up of it, that is the movie, is just perfect.
It's just really good.
Absolutely. Conversely, I do have a bad one, actually. His Dark Materials, not the TV show, but the first one made on it, called The Golden Compass. I think they dropped the ball on that, because that source novel is brilliant. Those first three books are awesome. But the Golden Compass, which took the first novel, and they just, I don't know, it's like they got we've got this fantastic piece of gold here, and oh no, I've dropped it. I've dropped it in the toilet. Oh no, I flushed it. Oh no, my God. It was so sad.
I mean, like, I don't hate the Golden Compass. I don't know if this is sacrilege. I quite like. I really like Northern Lights and Subtle Knife and the Amber Spyglass. I didn't hate the Golden Compass. I thought I had quite a nice.
There's some fantastic. There's some good casting in it.
Yeah,
there's some good casting in it. But they lost the essence of the book.
Better casting in the
BBC version. Absolutely.
Yeah. James McAvoy. I did not believe that he was an Asriel. We're getting into specifics and where
what about the Dark Tower?
What about it?
I just got off reading all those damn books, and I loved the character, and I saw that like a 12A version. It's the most absurd thing you could imagine. It ought to be played by someone with the kind of and Elba could have done it, but he needed to have been acting it like Eastwood in Unforgiven or something. Someone really very bitter and worn out by life. Where did they go wrong with that? I mean, it was, I don't know. That was
trying to make it in the first place.
Yes, that's true. It is. It
wasn't an adaptation.
No,
it wasn't an adaptation, was it? It was some made up different world thing. I don't know. Again, it's a bit like the Tom Clancy thing. They've taken the name and they've taken the character, but they haven't.
Yes,
they didn't.
Yes,
make
I
the
agree.
film. They just made something weird.
Which is interesting, because your point about them having to kind of take the essence of a book. I mean, if you can obviously take that too far, and just take the name and take, the fact that you can like move a bullet very accurately or something, and then there's your book, there's your film. But bringing it back to Clancy, I would say, and it has been commented in the thread as well, I would say that early Tom Clancy adaptations, Clancy and Crichton back in the day and John Grisham back in the day were, for me, some of the better examples of book to film adaptations. I thoroughly enjoyed The Firm, and I loved the book, and I thought they nailed it, absolutely nailed it in The Firm. The book I read in one sitting, and the film was a similar unput-downable, high stakes situation. I thought it was really nicely done. Jurassic Park, I absolutely loved the book, and I thought they did well. They did well doing that, and early Clancy, which is, some of the stuff he got up to with like 15 nuclear submarines all dancing under the water. I mean, they did really well to pare that down.
Fantasia style.
Yeah, create Hunt for Red October. Like give it some sense of scope and impact and claustrophobia, and reposition Ramius in a role which would go on to almost overshadow Clancy's Ryan. I thought it was tremendous, and as I said right at the beginning, Clear and Present Danger was an impossible to adapt book, and to do it with Ford in his second outing, a really good job of putting it together. And I think back in the day for me.
Yeah. So let's round this up. Let's give some advice for budding directors who want to adapt a book. Change it, but don't change it too much. Okay, moving on. Before we do move on for real, I have a segment. I have a little game that I want to play with you guys. I'm going to tell you the name of an author, and you are going to buzz in to tell me which Die Hard film that author's book was turned into. Okay?
Yeah, go.
So we have 3 Die Hard. Sorry, we don't have 3. We have 5 Die Hard movies to choose from.
I can only do 3 of these, I think.
Okay.
Oh, go on.
Right. I'm going to give you the author, and I'm also going to give the title of the book just to help you. No, I'm going to just give you I'm going to be mean. I'm going to be a jerk.
That's really mean.
It was really mean, isn't it? I don't know what you're going to use as a buzzer. You can just shout your name or something. Shout John McClane or whatever. Okay. This is going well. Question 1. No, example 1. Author 1. Jonathan Hensley.
4.
Oh, you meant to say but anyway, you're saying 4. 4?
4 or 5?
4 is Die Hard 4.0 or Live Free or Die Hard.
5,
It's not that. Simon, do you wanna jump in for the bonus point? Jonathan Hensley.
I'll go with 3.
Yeah. Good job.
3 was based on a book? I thought
3 was based on a pre-existing story. Jonathan Hensley wrote the script for Die Hard with a Vengeance based on his own original story, Simon Says.
Oh, which was going to be a Lethal Weapon film.
Of course.
That is a point for Simon.
Yeah.
Okay. John Carlin.
I'm not going to jump in this time. What's the name of the book?
Simon Says 2. It's not 2. Kaz.
It's not. 5.
No, it's number 4. Live Free or Die Hard, based on a Wired article, an article for internet magazine Wired by John Carlin.
That's not a book.
It's close to it's a publication. I should have said publication. Shut up. This is going great. What a wager.
2.
Oh, Kaz got it. Bonus point if you can tell me the name of the book.
88 minutes.
It was probably an advert in the back of the magazine, wasn't it?
87 minutes.
I'm going to give
minutes.
that to you.
78
Kaz.
minutes.
It is 58 minutes.
I was going to get there. I was going down.
You were going to get there. I'm going to give that to you. It's 2-1 at the moment, and we've got 2 more to go. So you've got a 50-50 chance of getting this one right. Roderick Thorpe.
Die Hard. Nothing lasts forever. Or
Kaz gets in there with an extra 2 points. Good job. So the last one is a dog who threw up on a typewriter. Die Hard 5. Thank you very much, Kaz. That was the bit. It was all for that joke. I hope you appreciated it.
Well done.
I thought 5 was actually based on a book, oddly.
Wow. I'm happy to disabuse you of that notion.
Yeah,
it is the only
one
screenplay that is written as a Die Hard movie.
You can tell.
Oh, I loved how that went. I feel good about that. I feel like warm and fuzzy inside. I'm going to do another one of those next time. I think we have talked. We've talked adaptations to death. Thank you for everybody who has contributed to those. I think we'll have a little bit of a talk about stuff that we're looking forward to over the next month, and then we will choose something to talk about this time next month. Let us talk about what is coming soon.
If you'd like to support the AVForums podcast on a regular basis, then why not become a patron? Head over to patreon.com/AVForums to sign up. You can also make a one-off donation through the Super Chat or via streamlabs.com/AVForums. All donations help us to improve the website and the podcasts. Thank you to all our supporters.
So, every month, Andy on AV Forums publishes lists of all the things that are coming to the streaming services. So we've had a quick look at those, and we've chosen a couple of things that we think you might like. Who'd like to go first with their recommendations? Kaz, Tell me
Cool.
something that you're looking forward to.
Is it Alejandro Ajar's Oxygen? The guy who did High Tension?
Absolutely. Tell us a
Yeah,
bit about
and
Oxygen. What is it?
Oh, I have no idea. Spaceship where people have got no oxygen. Add a guess. I'm going to go with a Netflix movie, and I'm going to go with it's by a director I like because he did Haute Tension, which I absolutely loved, and he recently did the one with the crocodiles, alligators,
Crawl.
which I also really enjoyed.
Mm.
And he's doing a Netflix movie. It's in space. I'm guessing it should be really no oxygen, judging by the image on the trailer icon. But I haven't got any further than that because I'm looking forward to watching it. And
It's a lockdown movie, so it's like a single hander, isn't it? It's a person in a place doing a thing for 90 minutes.
Oh wow, it's going to be almost as good as All Is Lost with Robert Redford, isn't it? That's what they're shooting for.
Don't invoke stuff like that.
Really?
If you're expecting things like that, you are
going to be great.
setting yourself up for disappointment. Boy, oh boy. Simon, what about you? What's something that you're looking forward to in the coming month?
Okay, so I'm going backwards in time only because it's a show that I've been wanting to see since I first saw it in the late 90s. A spin-off of Buffy, which is Angel, which is coming to Disney, which I can't believe because I don't subscribe to Disney. I now have to subscribe to Disney, which means I can get to watch Nomadland. Hurrah!
Awesome.
But yes, so Angel is coming. My wife and I watched Buffy in its horrendous HD format on Prime. Oh dear, must have been 6 months, maybe 7 months ago. And for those of you who do know, Angel was a spin-off from the third season. He went off to have his own show, but there were plenty of crossovers, and they were meant to be viewed one after the other. So you see Buffy, and then you see Angel, and that was how they were shown, and that's how they were shown originally on Sky in the late 90s, and that's how the crossovers worked. They would literally go from one show to the other, and because we've only seen Buffy because we only could at the time, there were elements that were missing, so we get to go back. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
That's good. Angel is great, and I just want to temper your expectations slightly, Si. The intent was there to cross them over, but I can only really think of a 3 or 4 episode stint between Buffy and Angel where they actually lined up with any meaningful consequence. But they are great. Yeah. Have you seen them before? Have you seen any of them before?
Oh yeah, I saw them all when they were originally out.
Perfect.
And I had them on DVD as well. I never watched them. I bought all the packs on DVD, but they remained sealed, and then I got rid of them because who watches DVD now? Which is a shame actually, because the DVD presentation of particularly of Buffy is far superior to anything you can get online. Because the HD master that they've done is horrendous, absolutely awful, god awful, pan and scan, zoomed, wrong color timed. It's just god awful. But that's a story for another day.
Absolutely. Oh, that's a good pick. Angel is great. Well,
what are you gonna watch?
It is great, bad, terrible, great. My pick. I'm having difficulty because Barry Jenkins, the director behind Oscar winner Moonlight, has a new series coming to Amazon called The Underground Railroad, which I think is like speculative fiction. I think it's like an alternative present.
Yeah, because there was an Underground Railroad, but it wasn't literal.
Yeah, exactly. In real life, the Underground Railroad was a system where people were ferried from the south to the north to escape slavery.
It didn't involve a railroad.
It didn't involve a real railroad under the earth. So I'm looking forward to that. I think that's got promise because Barry Jenkins is a great filmmaker. So we'll see what happens. But from a stupid point of view, coming to Disney, I think coming to Star at the end of next month is Marvel's MODOK, which is a stop motion style animation of the stupidest bad guy in Marvel history. He is a giant robot head played by Patton Oswalt. I am very much looking forward to a bit of stupidity in 20-minute chunks.
The Hulk having to battle this giant robot head.
He is a mechanical organism designed only for killing. I believe that is what MODOK stands for. And he is just awful, just truly awful. So I'm looking forward to them take the mickey out of that. Next month, over the coming month, there are a few big ticket releases. A Quiet Place 2 is coming out. Delayed, of course, from last year. Other stuff that is coming out this month includes Kaz?
Cruella,
the Disney Darkness.
Yeah, it could be a Maleficent. It could be Cinderella. We'll see in terms of how they go with this adaptation. I mean, I have to say a very punk trailer. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I hope they do a Maleficent, which is very much the direction they're going in, making her something of an anti-hero rather than an outright villain. So yeah, I'm up for that.
It's a good way to go, the Disney bad guys thing that they're doing. Where,
yeah, it is
exploring them a bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So fingers crossed. I mean, there's so we've done A Quiet Place 2, we've done Cruella. There's also Army of the Dead,
and that is what we are going to be talking about this time next month. Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead. We will be using it as a springboard to talk about zombie movies in general, and also probably Zack Snyder's good film, Dawn of the Dead.
Remake. Yeah.
You mean
remake. And so we will be discussing that and zombie films and more this time next month. So please do join us. I imagine we will be back here again on the first Tuesday of the month. That seems to be working for us, right, guys?
Yeah.
Seems to be.
Thanks for the chorus of support there.
I think it's the sensible option. Yes,
it is the sensible option.
Close a safe on a bunch of dead zombie hands and have money floating through the air. Yeah, welcome to Vegas.
It's going to be Ocean's 11 with zombies. What is not to like?
Yeah, with Dave Bautista and guns.
Yeah,
yes.
We like this. It's going to be good.
No. It's not. Yeah, but it's going to be.
It's going to be a masterpiece. It's going to be. No. It is going to be. Let me tell you this: the Citizen Kane of zombie movies.
Well, he is known for doing the Citizen Kane of various different genres, isn't he?
100%.
But we recently found out that the Citizen Kane wasn't the Citizen Kane of Citizen Kane.
No, Paddington 2 is the Citizen Kane.
Paddington 2 is the Citizen Kane of.
We are going to get sucked down a horrendous rabbit hole if we're not careful here. There is just time for us to look back at our Patreon poll. If you are a patron to AV Forums, we'll ask you to join in some fun stuff. You got to choose the topic of this episode, so thank you very much. And prior to this episode, we asked you what your favorite Tom Clancy adaptation was. And the surprise favorite was Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit. I'm kidding. It was The Hunt for Red October.
God.
Thank you. Thank you very much to...
It's going to monologue about the fact that that's not a book. You can't be serious.
Thank you to 63% of our patrons who voted for that. 13% voted for Clear and Present Danger, also a thoroughly legitimate choice. But there does also seem to be some good love for Jack Ryan the series, so maybe I should get off my keister and maybe start watching that and find out what all the fuss is about. All really that remains for me to say is thank you very, very much for listening. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe to the channel, and you can hit the notification bell to find out when we publish new videos, product reviews, etc., etc. If you are listening to us at your leisure, please give us a 5-star rating on whichever service you are using. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and all the usual places. Please bookmark avforums.com for all the latest reviews and news. That is it for
the competition.
Oh, the podcast competition.
Yeah. To win a copy of Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit on Blu-ray, just use the following question to select the correct answer. What was Jack Ryan's birth name? And no, I'm not tricking you with middle names.
What was Jack Ryan's birth name? Thank you very much. I nearly missed that out, but please do enter to win a copy of Jack Ryan Shadow Recruit, everyone's favorite Tom Clancy movie
And book.
Apparently, that really, genuinely, this time is it for the AV Forums Movie Podcast this week. So my thanks to Kaz Harlow.
My name's John Clark now.
John Clark. John Kelly. And this is going well. And Jack Ryan, Simon Crust.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. Hope you
Thank
enjoyed
you
it.
very much.
May the force be with you.
Happy Star Wars Day, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Good Star Wars podcast.
Beautiful Star Wars podcast. Attack of the Clones Forever. I'm Tom Davis. Thank you for joining us. And we will see you for the weekly podcast tomorrow night. Good night, everyone. Goodbye.